Your dream home just became more expensive, and not because of limited inventory or a sudden housing surge. The real reason is unfolding thousands of miles away. As tensions and conflict in Iran escalate, the effects are moving directly into the U.S. financial system. In just the past week, mortgage rates have recorded their sharpest increase of 2026, placing immediate pressure on a housing market that had only just begun to recover. What seems like distant geopolitical instability is now directly influencing the cost of buying a home. Today, we break down the hidden connection between global conflict and your monthly mortgage payment and why this shift is happening faster than most people expected. To understand why events in Iran are influencing interest rates across the United States, you need to start with oil. Iran sits at the center of some of the world's most critical energy routes. When instability rises in this region, global oil markets react immediately. Investors begin pricing in risk, and this adds what is known as a risk premium to crude oil. As oil prices climb, the effects ripple across the entire global economy, increasing transportation costs, manufacturing expenses, and overall pricing pressure. This is where inflation begins to accelerate. As inflation expectations rise, investors start moving their money away from government bonds. That shift causes bond prices to fall, and when bond prices fall, yields rise. Since mortgage rates, especially 30-year fixed mortgages, are closely tied to the 10-year Treasury yield, borrowing costs increase almost instantly. Recently, Treasury yields reached a near 2-year high, and as a direct result, mortgage rates surged past 7.5% once again. This is not a slow-moving change, it is a rapid financial reaction driven by global uncertainty. For the 2026 housing market, this shift is arriving at the worst possible moment. Earlier in the year, there were clear signs of recovery. Builders had started new projects, construction activity was increasing, and buyer interest was slowly returning. That momentum is now slowing sharply. High mortgage rates are creating what economists call a lock-in effect. Homeowners who secured loans at historically low rates, around 3% or 4%, are now unwilling to sell their homes because moving would mean taking on a much higher interest rate. As a result, fewer homes are entering the market, reducing available supply. At the same time, high borrowing costs are discouraging new buyers. This creates a situation where supply is limited, demand is weakened, and prices remain elevated. For first-time buyers, affordability is becoming a serious barrier. Even a small increase in rates has a major impact. Data shows that a 1% rise in mortgage rates can add approximately $400 to a monthly payment, which significantly changes purchasing power. This difference alone can push many potential buyers out of the housing market entirely, forcing them to remain in rental housing instead of transitioning to home ownership. If this breakdown is helping you understand how global events are directly affecting your financial decisions, make sure to subscribe and stay updated for deeper analysis like this, and share your perspective in the comments. Do you think rising mortgage rates will stop you from buying a home or delay your plans further? Attention is now shifting toward the Federal Reserve, which faces a difficult situation. Under normal circumstances, if the housing market begins to slow, the Fed might consider cutting interest rates to stimulate growth. However, the current environment is far more complex. Rising energy prices driven by geopolitical conflict are pushing inflation higher. If the Fed decides to cut rates too early, inflation could accelerate further and create long-term economic instability. On the other hand, if the Fed chooses to keep rates elevated, borrowing costs will remain high, and the housing market could weaken even more. Analysts are divided on what happens next. Some believe the market will undergo a gradual correction where home prices adjust downward to reflect reduced demand. Others warn of a prolonged freeze where both buyers and sellers step back, creating minimal activity across the market until global tensions ease. Global events are no longer distant headlines with limited relevance. They are actively shaping your financial reality, influencing everything from fuel prices to mortgage payments. The connection between international conflict and local economic conditions is now immediate and unavoidable. As the situation continues to evolve, its effects on housing, inflation, and financial markets will remain critical to watch. Stay informed, stay aware, and continue tracking how these global developments translate into everyday costs that directly impact your life.